I mean, good for you. Indeed, good. Is that what we did? Again, there's no magic to this, and the truth is, that as Ben pointed out, and several of you pointed out, it's always risky, it's always dangerous. Resolving conflict takes two things. It takes courage to confront, to bring it up because of the danger. It takes courage to make peace. It also takes humility to hear it and to recognize, I'm not perfect, and there are things that need to change, and to be willing to bend. And those two things are both really hard for human beings to do. This is why we need God, we need the Holy Spirit, we need enough love for God that we're willing to do some things that we know He wants us to do, we know they're hard. But if you can do that, I'll tell you, it brings relief. One of the things I know that Deb and I just learned, it's always hard in the moment, but then we get through it, and it's usually messy and a little bit bloody, but then when we come out the other end, we both walk away, and the person who's been confronted, they realize, hey, when this happens, it causes pain. And they may not like it. They don't like it, but they go away and they think about that, and they get back around, and the Holy Spirit works in their heart, and they begin to say, I don't want to cause you pain, and the behavior begins to change. If you don't say anything, it just keeps going on because they think, well, you don't notice it bother you. So it's always worth it, and to give this a shot. Now I've got 5 minutes before noon, and I want to take just these last 5 minutes here. Let me get through all this that we've already covered. And I want to talk about deep conflict. When we're talking about deep conflict, we're talking about what I mentioned, some deep wounds that really hurt, and they can create distance, suspicion, distrust, a lack of affection just because of the extent of the bruise. These are things like an affair. These are things like losing a bunch of money in a bad investment. These are things like you don't like my family or my parents. These are things like you've always put your job ahead of the family and kind of abandoned me or raised your kids. These are things like you lost your temper and pushed me against the wall. These are things like you've gotten into an addictive drug or prescription drug habit, and it's really painful. I mean, this is the kind of thing we're talking about. It's not just, gee, we're late to dinner. And it's important, obviously, to resolve these, because if not, then what happens is that thing stays in there and it just gets infected. And it causes a kind of a low-grade resentment to just be there all the time, so that it's hard to resolve the daily conflicts, because one of you is really mad at the other one. And so every little thing feels a lot bigger than it normally is. So the question is, how do you resolve those kinds of things? And I think one of the things that's helpful in this is to understand the damage that's done by a deep wound, by the kinds of things I just mentioned. And there are really 3 circles. This is very helpful, because often what happens is the person who did it, the person who had the affair, lost all the money, pushed you up against the wall, got into an addictive habit that left you feeling abandoned. What they do is, and it's not intentional, but they give what we call a cup of apology for a bathtub full of offense. And so they feel, hey, I've already said I'm sorry. Why can't you forgive me? And the reason is there's some damage that I haven't addressed that you need addressed. So the damage of a deep wound is the wound itself. I mean, it's what happened. I got pushed up against the wall. You whatever it is, you lost all our money. You alienated my parents from us. You had an affair. That's the wound. And often that's what the wounding person is aware of, and that's what they'll say, gee, I'm sorry for that. Will you forgive me? What they don't know is that wound caused more damage than just the wound. It was the pain of that. In other words, it's kind of a ripple effect. There's the fear, there's the shame, there's the insecurity, there's the grief of that. So there's the pain that causes. And so, I said, gee, I'm sorry I had that affair with that woman. Nothing, it's broken off. is finished, will you forgive me? But have I talked about what that does to the person emotionally? You know, I need to ask forgiveness for just the devastation, the loss of trust, the sense of being unattractive and unwanted and unlovable, and the fear that it will happen again, and the grief that we've lost something that was just ours and now it's been spread out to somebody else. Have I addressed what that has done emotionally and said, would you forgive me for that? And then there's another circle out here, and that's the effects of that. That's the ongoing ripples. And you know, that may be everything from, gee, we had to move to get away from this thing, the trouble that you caused and caused me to uproot. It may be it's caused me to lose my ability to trust and have normal relationships with other people. In some cases, there's a loss of job, there's a loss of friends, we had to move churches because everybody found out about this and we can't go in there anymore. In other words, there's the practical effects of the damage that was done. And so when it comes to reconciling deep wounds, if I'm the offender, I need to appreciate the extent of the damage that I've done. And if I'm really going to make peace, I just need to ask the person, will you forgive me for the three circles? For, you know, the fact that I lost all my money in a government investment, and the fact that caused you great embarrassment, and the fact that we had to, you know, sell our house and downsize and move places and leave places, and the effects of it. So you want to cover the extent of the damage. And then if I'm forgiving, it's important that I understand the extent of the damage and that I'm forgiving these things. And you know, this isn't all that deep. It's just if it's never been addressed, if the circles haven't been addressed, then I'm still aware there is pain, there are damage that has never been acknowledged, and that causes tension and strain in the relationship. So, very simple. I mean, it's simple to understand. It's not easy to do, but it's simple to understand. If I'm the offended person, I'm the one who has been hurt, it's important that I describe to the person who's hurt me. Maybe my husband or wife, that's what we're talking about here. It's important that you be able to describe these three circles. You know, okay, this is what happened. Now let me just share what that did inside of me emotionally. And let me describe what that's done in terms of relationships, possessions, opportunities, things that have rippled on. Now that's not being mean, it's just, let's lay this thing out so that you can see what's happened as a result of this. Because I can't patch it up if I don't know the mess I made. I can't clean it up if I don't know the extent of the mess. And so it starts by, if this is you, having a very open conversation. Not trying to condemn the person, it's not trying to make them feel guilty or shamed, that's not it. It's just, let's look at the extent of the damage here. Then, the offender, obviously it's the person who did it, it's very simple, and again, it's simple, it's not necessarily hard, but there's a heartfelt, oh man, I didn't realize what I've done. Will you forgive me for what I did, what that's done inside of you, and for the practical effects that's caused. And then obviously, if I'm the offender, I'm making a decision. Will I forgive you? I forgive you for, you know, what you've done in terms of the damage to my family. Will I forgive you for the pain and the alienation, the loneliness it's caused? Will I forgive you for the fact that now we can't ever get together with them because they don't want us around, or whatever it is. Now, the main piece of this that I wanted to show you is this thing here. Because often, as I said, the reason couples get caught and there's no progress is whoever offended thinks of the offense, they ask forgiveness for that, but they don't address the collateral circles of damage. And so your spouse can forgive you for that, but they're still feeling the damage, and that never gets addressed, and so resentment tends to continue. Okay, that's that. Okay, that's it. I want to, obviously, the application of that little 5 minutes is simply to ask, are we dealing with some deep wounding in our marriage? And if so, and often it's helpful to get somebody, a pastor, friend, somebody to kind of help you go through this, just to help that process go. But if you do, it can bring tremendous relief. If not, then this deep wounding just continues to cause this undercurrent of resentment, distrust, and suspicion. And so you always sense something's off here. We just can't seem to get along. We seem to fight about everything. That's kind of the symptom, but wait a minute, there's something underneath that's hurt and never been resolved. Okay? All right. I think it's lunchtime. You guys ready for lunch? Are we good? Mike, we good okay?